The diner went completely quiet. Utensils hung suspended in the air. The sound of coffee mugs ceased, and all eyes shifted toward the corner booth where an aging black man sat shaking, his face bearing the fresh sting of a bully's strike. The slap resonated far beyond its physical sound, piercing, degrading, wholly unjustified. The elderly man fought back his tears, not because of physical suffering, but because of the harsh echo of a world he had once put his life on the line to defend. His aged hands trembled as they clutched the table's edge while he murmured something barely audible, words no one could distinguish, yet everyone could sense. A silent supplication, or maybe a veteran's pledge to remain resilient. He was dressed in a worn military jacket, the authentic kind that can't be purchased in retail shops, with medals still dimly sewn above the breast pocket, the remnants of duty and loss woven into every fiber. Nobody present understood his identity, what trials he had faced, or who might be observing. However, someone would arrive shortly, and upon his entrance, the entire situation would transform, for the elderly man's son held no common position. He served as the Director of Homeland Security. The elderly man was called Samuel Carter, 78 years of age. He had completed 3 deployments abroad, during an era when honor held significance and a firm grip communicated truth. His existence had since contracted, early hours at the recreational grounds, midday hours feeding the birds, twilight hours in solitude within his modest dwelling surrounded by aging pictures. Each Saturday he visited Mary's Diner, a small-town establishment that remained unchanged since the 1960s. It transported him back to an uncomplicated era, one rich with music machine melodies and fresh-baked dessert. Yet this day, his tranquility was destroyed by someone who understood nothing about human decency. The bully's identity was irrelevant. He belonged to that category of boisterous, aggressive individuals who thrived on demeaning others, someone who mistook brutality for power. He chuckled after he hit the elderly man, believing it was humorous, assuming nobody would have the courage to intervene. Yet surrounding them, the atmosphere grew frigid. A parent shielded her young one's vision. The chef became motionless at the cooking surface. The server let her serving tray fall, her mouth opening in disbelief. Still nobody acted. Nobody uttered a word. Terror weighs heavily when malevolence enters so brazenly. Samuel remained motionless, his thoughts wandering to combat zones from long ago. He recalled being shouted at, receiving spit, being informed he was unwelcome even following his military service. He recalled cradling his comrade as life left him beneath distant heavens, vowing that their loss wouldn't fade from memory. Nevertheless, here he sat, multiple decades afterward in the nation they defended, being struck by someone half his years for no justification beyond his racial identity. The burning sensation on his face paled in comparison to the wound in his spirit. He felt the urge to weep, but warriors don't weep, they persevere. Therefore he uttered a gentle "God bless you" toward the bully even while the man continued laughing and the diner's entrance swung open behind them accompanied by the subtle sound of footwear striking the floor. Michael Carter had been traveling home following a security meeting, his thoughts occupied with procedures and strategies, when he chose to visit his father's preferred location. He hadn't visited him throughout the week, and an instinct within him urged him to look in. The instant he entered, he detected that something was amiss. The atmosphere was dense, laden with tension. Each person's gaze shifted toward him, faces bearing an unspoken appeal. Subsequently, he noticed his father, his idol, seated in isolation with moisture in his eyes and a crimson impression on his face. Michael became paralyzed. Momentarily, he wasn't the Director of Homeland Security. He wasn't the individual who conferred with presidents or directed national operations. He was simply a son, observing the man who had instilled in him integrity, compassion, and fortitude, now seated in disgrace before a stranger. He advanced gradually, his footfalls resonating throughout the space. The bully, continuing to sneer, pivoted and mocked. "What? You planning to weep for the old man?" he taunted, oblivious to whom he addressed. Michael didn't elevate his tone, didn't create a disturbance. He merely rested a hand upon his father's shoulder, his gaze sweeping the establishment, recording every element, the shaking server, the terrified pair in the seating area, the bully's smugness. Subsequently, in a composed tone, he inquired whether his father was unharmed. Samuel gave a slight nod, attempting to minimize the situation as though generations of endurance wouldn't permit him to become the source of confrontation. Yet Michael understood the truth. His father's hands continued trembling. That alone was sufficient. He faced the bully, his features revealing nothing. "You're unaware of what you've just done," he stated quietly, not as intimidation, but as simple truth. The bully chuckled, shouldering past him, speaking something vicious beneath his breath. That moment Michael retrieved his phone, not for physical confrontation, not for debate, but to place a call that would alter the man's existence. In mere moments, 2 municipal officers appeared at the diner, individuals who recognized precisely who Michael was. He provided them with a concise account, his manner controlled, businesslike. The bully's smugness vanished as he comprehended this was no average individual before him. The officers escorted him outdoors, his objections dissolving into the fall breeze. Within, the quiet resumed, though this time it carried difference. It wasn't terror. It was reverence. Michael took a seat beside his father, his words quavering with the burden of affection and grief. "You were undeserving of that," he murmured. Samuel offered a faint smile, expressing he'd survived harsher treatment, that pardoning was a warrior's obligation. Yet Michael disagreed. "You battled for this nation," he declared. "And this nation ought to battle for you." They remained in wordless comprehension, 2 generations connected by courage, one forged by combat, the other by duty. As the server delivered them fresh coffee and dessert, her eyes moistened. "Sir," she addressed Samuel gently, "thank you for your service." He acknowledged, moisture finally escaping. The complete diner responded, applauding gradually, not from sympathy, but appreciation. For the first occasion in considerable time, Samuel felt acknowledged, not as a remnant of history, but as someone who remained significant. Multiple days afterward, the account circulated. Surveillance recordings of the occurrence, shared with Samuel's consent, became widespread. Throughout the nation, individuals observed an aged serviceman withstand hatred with dignity and mercy and observed his son maintain firm in righteousness. Broadcast journalists discussed respect, regarding family, regarding the necessity to honor those who sacrificed everything for liberty. Correspondence arrived from unknown people. Educational institutions extended invitations to Samuel for speaking engagements. Veterans organizations made contact. The bully, now chastened, delivered a handwritten expression of regret, confessing that his cruelty originated from lack of understanding, not reality. Samuel, maintaining his character, pardoned him, demonstrating to the world that forgiveness isn't frailty. It's courage tempered by suffering. Throughout the subsequent weeks, Samuel and Michael transformed into representations of endurance and solidarity. The diner evolved into a location of tribute where a commemorative marker was mounted near the corner seating displaying, "For those who served and still stand strong." Each Saturday Samuel came back, welcomed by acquaintances and unknown visitors equally, his expression more radiant, his mood elevated, and each occasion he raised his coffee cup, he wordlessly expressed gratitude to God for renewed opportunities, for righteousness delivered not through rage, but through mercy. Michael never dismissed that day. It reinforced why he accepted the pledge, why he served, not for authority, but for the understated honor of individuals like his father. Should this account move your heart, please remember to like this video and subscribe for additional compelling true-style narratives that celebrate bravery, compassion, and the human essence. Particular request: what action would you have taken if you were present in that diner? Express your perspectives in the comments section. Your opinion holds value.